The Law of One, Book 3, Part 6. Questioner. In a close encounter by a Confederation type of craft, I am assuming that this close encounter is with a thought form type of craft. Have wanderers within the past few years had close encounters with landed thought form type of craft? Ra. I am Ra. This has occurred, although it is much less common than the Orion type of so-called close encounter. We may note that in a universe of unending unity, the concept of a close encounter is humorous, for are not all encounters of a nature of self with self? Therefore, how can any encounter be less than very, very close? Questioner. Well, talking about this type of encounter of self to self, have any wanderers of a positive polarization ever had a so-called close encounter with the Orion or negatively oriented polarization? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. Why does this occur? Ra. I am Ra. When it occurs, it is quite rare and occurs either due to the Orion entity's lack of perception of the depth of positivity to be encountered, or due to the Orion entity's desire to, shall we say, attempt to remove this positivity from this plane of existence. Orion tactics normally are those which choose the simple distortions of mind, which indicate less mental and spiritual complex activity. Questioner. I have become aware of a very large variation in the contact with individuals. Could you give me general examples of the methods used by the Confederation to awaken or partially awaken the wanderers they contact? Ra. I am Ra. The methods used to awaken wanderers are varied. The center of each approach is the entrance into the conscious and subconscious in such a way as to avoid causing fear and to maximize the potential for an understandable subjective experience which has meaning for the entity. Many such occur in sleep, others in the midst of many activities during the waking hours. The approach is flexible and does not necessarily include the close encounter syndrome, as you are aware. Questioner. What about the physical examination syndrome? How does that relate to wanderers and Confederation and Orion contacts? Ra. I am Ra. The subconscious expectations of entities cause the nature and detail of thought form experience offered by Confederation thought form entities. Thus, if a wanderer expects a physical examination, it will perforce be experienced as little distortion towards alarm or discomfort as is allowable by the nature of the expectations of the subconscious distortions of the wanderer. Questioner. Well, are those who are taken on both Confederation and Orion craft then experiencing a seeming physical examination? Ra. I am Ra. Your query indicates incorrect thinking. The Orion group uses the physical examination as a means of terrifying the individual and causing it to feel the feelings of an advanced second-density being, such as a laboratory animal. The sexual experiences of some are a subtype of this experience. The intent is to demonstrate the control of the Orion entities over the terrain inhabitant. The thought form experiences are subjective and, for the most part, do not occur in this density. Questioner. Well, we have a large spectrum of entities on Earth with respect to harvestability, both positively oriented and negatively oriented. Would the Orion group target in on the ends of this spectrum, both positively and negatively oriented, for contact with Earth entities? Ra. I am Ra. This query is somewhat difficult to accurately answer. However, we shall attempt to do so. The most typical approach of Orion entities is to choose what you might call the weaker-minded entity that it might suggest a greater amount of Orion philosophy to be disseminated. Some few Orion entities are called by more highly polarized negative entities of your space-time nexus. In this case, they share information just as we are doing now. However, this is a risk for the Orion entities due to the frequency with which the harvestable negative planetary entities then attempt to bid and order the Orion contact, just as these entities bid planetary negative contacts. The resulting struggle for mastery, if lost, is damaging to the polarity of the Orion group. Similarly, a mistaken Orion contact with highly polarized positive entities can wreak havoc with Orion troops unless these crusaders are able to depolarize the entity mistakenly contacted. This occurrence is almost unheard of. Therefore, the Orion group prefers to make physical contact only with the weaker-minded entity.